GCW's Homecoming 2025 had everything going for itself in the first half. Explosive returns, perfect storytelling, and crowd-pleasing moments. But then it completely fell apart when it mattered the most. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what worked, what sucked, and the one match that proves when overbooking is done right, it can create some awesome shit. But first, the championship match that killed all the momentum, the main event injury that ruined everything, and why this show represents GCW's biggest problem. Let's start with that perfect example of overbooking done right. Matt Cardona vs. Shotzi for the vacant Garage Beer World title. Bro, this match was awesome. It had what you expect early on, but then the surprise return of Nick Gage, that turned this match up a notch. Bro, the crowd exploded for this return. Then the return of Cross and Scarlett, that was just chef's kiss right there. And all this led perfectly to Shotzi winning the title with a senton from the top rope after Cross put Cardona through a door. This is how you layer the storytelling without it feeling forced. I give this one 4.25 stars. If you follow the feud of this, it will make perfect sense why I rated this high. The energy continued with Drew Parker versus Marcus Mathers. Now this was good as expected, but bro, I needed these two to keep going because this was really starting to cook. Parker won with a knee strike after a very good back and forth with really impactful moves and some variations. If you put these guys higher on the card, especially in the main event, with all the time that they want, this would have easily been minimum a great match. However, this was just 3.25 stars. Dr. Redacted versus Ultramantis Black in a death match was crazy. Redacted won with a crossbody through glass, but the real highlights were the ocean suplex on a barbed wire board that Redacted hit and bumped on really hard, and Black doing a J-driller on a fan that had blades exposed while still spinning. There was also a crazy exploder back suplex variation on the edge of chairs by Redacted. This was just sick stuff all around. I gave this one 3 stars. But here's where the cracks start to show, leading to that complete meltdown I promised you. And this is where things start to shift. But before we get to that train wreck, let me tell you about the match that had everything going for it until a bizarre finish just ruined it all. Joey Janela, Matt Tremont, and Masha Slammers versus Vandal 4 in a death match was good, but it dragged. This also had a goofy finish and sequence that didn't hit execution wise. So during this match, the Bev came out in an OH44 shirt as if he was on the side of Vandal 4, only to reveal a GCW shirt and turn on Vandal 48. Now while there were some nice spots like Janela's sick double knee on the door and Masha taking a nice bump off a powerbomb through glass, the finish with Charles Mason putting a bag over Atticus Kogar's head on a scissor lift and throwing him off through a door just felt clunky. This gets 3.25 stars. The GCW Tag Team title match with Wyatt DNP versus Gringo Loco and Jack Cartwheel was really good, but I expected more. YDMP retained with the elevated bulldog after the usual stuff that you would expect from these guys, with some nice combos. It just needed more time to be great. This gets 3.5 stars. Then we hit the mediocre stretch that really killed this show's momentum. And this is where you're going to see exactly why this show went from must watch to skip it real quick. John Wayne Murdoch versus Cyclope versus Bam Sullivan versus Bear Bronson versus Mr. Danger versus Little Sickle in a 6-way scramble death match was just okay. Now they worked hard, but this didn't move me like the match seemed like it wanted to. Bronson won with a Michinoku driver on light tubes after some decent spots throughout. Danger had a nice swanton off the ladder through glass, and he and Sicko pulled off a solid tandem Van Terminator with light tubes. But the real story here was Bear Bronson continuing to get over with the crowd. This was clearly more about building him up for this ultra-violent title match that he would have with Tremont on the next show than delivering a standout match. This gets 2.75 stars. Now in between all this, Austin Luke versus returning AJ Gray was a simple squash match. Gray won with a lariat after Luke did an open challenge, and pretty much there's nothing much else. Just a palate cleanser before things got worse. Now here's where GCW completely fumbled the bag. Remember that title match disaster I teased you with? The GCW World title match really highlighted the problem. Effie vs KJ Orso was disappointing. I expected way more here, especially with the hype going in. Effie retained with a Rough Rider, but it was just very blah. Nothing went into second gear. Now Sam Stackhouse came out and attacked KJ, which is understandable given their feud, but all of this just didn't hit for me. A flat world title match just kills momentum like nothing else. This gets 2.5 stars. In the main event with Masashi Takeda versus Slade in a death match was really the final nail in the coffin. This was going along well. Nice visuals with huge scissors, and both guys were just beating the shit out of each other. But it appeared that Takeda hurt his leg during the match and it unfortunately slowed everything down. And here's that main event injury that ruined everything. He tried to continue when there was a sense something was wrong, but it ended prematurely. Takeda won with a cradle driver that looked dangerous, and Slade must have spiked his head and neck a couple of times during this finishing sequence. Pretty much this was a 2-star match. But here's what all this really means for GCW, and why this pattern keeps happening. And if you think this is just a one-off bad night, you need to hear about their bigger problem that's been years in the making. Here's the thing about GCW Homecoming 2025. It's a perfect example of how wrestling shows live and die by their final impressions. The first half had everything you want. Prize returns that meant something, storytelling that enhanced the action, and crowds that were genuinely invested. But when your world title match falls flat and your main event ends with an injury, all that good work gets overshadowed. GCW has this pattern where they front load their shows with good stuff and then just hopes the audience sticks around for the weaker material. It doesn't work. You can't coast on the first hour when people are investing 3 hours of their time. And with that, this gets a 6.75 out of 10. The early matches showed what this company can do when everything clicks. But the back half reminded us why consistency is still their biggest challenge.